Okay. Is the PowerPoint visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Nice. So once again, good afternoon, everybody. And it is with your consent that I'm recording this particular session for future reference. It will be uploaded. Okay. Now, we are going to be discussing the gist or the summary of Isaac Asimov's iconic essay, The Good Earth is Dying. Okay, and before we begin our presentation, it is important to get a bit of context. So I will show you this image. Okay, this was the image that was clicked by the astronaut William Anders on 24th December 1968 from the window of Apollo 8. Okay, and what you see, this blue here is the Earth. Okay, and this image became a very iconic one. In fact, it is credited with kind of speeding up or encouraging the need or the movement to conserve the environment. Okay, so this image is what is called Earthrise. EARTHRISE. It's a single word, Earthrise. And this image is credited with, let's say, raising the need for urgent conservation of the environment. This was a very crucial image in that sense of the term. And later on, it was also, the center of a debate about whether this image is art or whether it is science. And the kind of work that Isaac Asimov has put forward, and his philosophy in life, it is quite obvious that he would have stood for this being both art as well as science. Because he believed that science has to have a very close interaction with human beings. Okay, and most of his works, whether it be I, Robo or the Bicentennial Man, a lot of works like that, all of them have pointed out that interconnection between human life and science, science and human life. Understand? In fact, there would be no need for science if it weren't for the sake of human life, and human life would not have been able to sustain itself this long if it hadn't been for science. Okay, so his works have been extremely interesting in that sense of the term, because it reveals the human face of science. Okay, the way he wrote about it, it was science with a human face. Now, he was basically a very popular science fiction writer, but above that, he had a very, very intelligent and interesting understanding of how science must function. Okay, what must be the work of science, what is the function of science, was something that Isaac Asimov was very, very clear about. He did not want human beings to serve science. He wanted science to serve human beings. To what extent? Not for the sake of destruction, but he wanted science to serve human beings, to make the planet a better place, a more intelligently sustainable space. Okay, so it is interesting that in a sense of the term, people like Isaac Asimov, in way back in 1971, were talking about the concepts of sustainability. So this is the context. Understand? Yeah. Now, let's look at the summary of the essay. Okay, yeah. So now, as I told you earlier, it talks about the sustainability of the planet, and that the very sustainability of the planet or existence of the planet could come under danger if our population continues to increase at such an alarming rate. Now, as you are well aware that this particular unit, number 7, talks about environment and human population. So this essay is very significant because it talks about the impact that population makes upon the environment. Now, I hope you know that The Good Earth is Dying is an essay that was written in 1971. Understand? So even at that point of time, the rate of population increase was something of a great concern for the environmentalists. Okay. Now, see, like I was mentioning, most people believe that a nation has made progress if its population has access to clean drinking water, good health services, good housing services, good education services, good job opportunities, as well as nutritional food. Okay. Now, how does one manage all of this if the population increases at this alarming rate? The resources are going to remain the same. See, resources will rise, very, very gradually, but population rises exponentially. Okay, exponentially, exponentially. So where an exponential growth is always faster than this gradual kind of a growth. Okay, so by the time the crops are ready, by the time that is available to the people, the population has increased beyond unimaginable levels. See, in your case itself, you would think about how many people you knew about 5 years ago, and now think about how many additional people you know right now. Okay, and how many of those people have children, and how many of those children have gone and got married and have had children of their own. Okay, this is population. See, in some countries of the world, the population is right now negative. But there are some other countries, which we call the developing world, where population has exploded to almost unsustainable limits. And this in turn causes a lot of problems like overcrowding, housing issues, sanitation issues, waste generation. Okay, all of this, it becomes very unmanageable. So Asimov feels that if humans continue to increase at the rate at which they are increasing, species of animals and plants are going to die out, because where is the space on this earth to accommodate so many people? Understand? Because you think about a particular area, you ask your parents or grandparents, ask them how their locality has changed, how their places that they knew, how they have changed, and they will tell you there used to be only 3 houses here, but now there are 10. Now imagine the materials that went into building those 7 houses, sustaining the people who live there, the water they consume, the electricity that they consume, the food that they consume. Okay, when they go for their jobs, the energy that they consume. I don't mean physical energy. I mean, transport, petrol, that kind of an energy. The amount of electricity that they need in their homes, in their workplaces. Okay, all of this. And, at what rate, at what price will this come at plants, at the rate of plants as well as animals? Okay, those species will be affected. Now, Asimov makes a very important point. He says that the total surface available on Earth in space is 520 million square kilometers. Now, at the peak of human population, average density of population will be 8,000 people per square kilometer. That means in 1 square kilometer, there will be 8,000 people. Okay. Now, the number of people on earth can go on increasing. Understand? Yeah. The number of people on earth can go on increasing, but do you think that according to that, the space on earth will go on increasing? It will be like, 520 million square kilometers. Will there ever come a point when we will have 600 million square kilometers available? Do you think?
No, ma'am.
Oh, ma'am.
Exactly. Okay, because the space is not an elastic concept. Okay, at least physical space is not an elastic concept. We can go on stacking houses one on top of each other. We can build flats. So where there has been space for 10 houses, a huge flat can come and it can go up to 25, 30, 50. In some very, very big buildings, it can go up to 120 and so on. But that is not the solution, because you are, exerting that much of strain upon the earth, because all these people require those many, the same amount of water, electricity, and so on. If not some more, because, cooling, problems will be there in all of these buildings. Lift facility is needed in all of these buildings. So again, you're using a great amount of energy and resources. And thanks to the amount of air conditioners, televisions, cars, buses, modes of transport, etc., that we have been systematically using, human contribution to the atmospheric temperature is doubling every 20 years. This means that by the time, this 8,000 people per square kilometer will be reached, there will be an unimaginable strain upon the temperature also. And Earth's temperature is so delicate that it cannot take radical shifts in temperature. Just 2 degrees centigrade can possibly cause everything to just collapse. The way that we know it can collapse. Understand? So and the thing is that with the growth of human population, what we're doing is that the more the population of the world grows, the more these people will need to travel from one place to another. Right? You can compare about data from 20 years ago. You can ask your parents 20 years ago how many buses were running through your area. Okay. And then you yourself can contrast it by looking at the number of buses that are running now. Understand? So, this number of buses that have increased is not because, people are traveling more comfortably. No matter how many buses are there, they are all going crowded. They used to go before Corona. They all used to go jam-packed. Correct? So that means, and there are still people waiting for the next bus to come. So this amount of travel that they are taking, this amount of energy that they are burning, fuels, they need clothes. Those clothes have to be produced. Imagine the smoke going into the atmosphere. So that is why it is not sustainable. This level of population growth is not sustainable. Now you can look at countries like the US, okay, which has a very high standard of living, and we are like, oh, why can't we be like the US, energy efficient and so on? But the truth is that they have a high standard of living because they are consuming more than half the energy produced in the world just for 1/16 of the Earth's population. Understand? So there are very few people, but they are consuming huge amounts of energy. Understand? Whereas in countries like India, China, and so on, there are a huge number of people, and we are using a huge amount of energy resources for them, and still that is not enough. That's the problem. Now, he says that, now if we want to match the American standard of living, that will mean that we'll have to consume at least 8 times the present amount of global energy consumption. Now remember, this essay was written in 1971. You are studying this in 2020, which means that the population of America has also gone up exponentially. The population of countries like India, China, Pakistan, countries in Africa, all of these have also gone up exponentially, which means that this 8 times would have gone up to some other unimaginable number. Okay. Now, suppose, we all want to be like America. The problem is going to be that, there's going to be a great deal of waste that is being generated. Okay. Amount of environmental pollution and environmental degradation is going to be unimaginable. So, this will lead to very severe consequences like famine, epidemic outbreaks, something that we are experiencing right now, and sanitation issues. Understand? So, the fallout or the result of unscientific human population, growth of human population, will be famine, because not everybody will get food, not everybody will get equal access to food, and that food will not be of the same quality. It will definitely not be of the same quantity. Do you know that 7 go, they have issues? Understand? How did that happen? Right? Now, one of the biggest challenges in front of the world today is eradication of hunger. Once upon a time, it used to be eradication of polio and smallpox and so on. But today, hunger has become a huge problem. And with the coming of, epidemics like Corona, what has again happened is that, the problem of hunger has become very severe. The problem of malnutrition has become very, very significant. Because, at least in countries like India, where there used to be the midday meal scheme, where children going to school were given food in the afternoon, in some cases, that was their only source of nourishment. With the lockdown coming, with all of these things coming to a halt, that began to suffer. Do you know that, about 20 years of hard work in the field of social services, Okay, in the field of universal health care, universal education, at least in a country like India, where it was almost mandatory for all children to go to school, where they were trying to implement the Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, do things like that and send all kids to school so that they would at least get food. That has been set back by 20 years because of this epidemic. Okay, and now children have started going for work instead of going to school so that they can earn for the family. Now, do you think that when things come back to normal, they are going to go back to school? No. Understand? So there will be famine, there will be epidemic outbreaks, there will be sanitation issues. Understand? Where is all this wastewater going to go? Where is all of this the effulgence going to go? Where is it? The factory waste, human waste, the sludge, all of this. Okay, there is no sustainable way of disposing of these things properly, because we cannot afford to cut down production, because that will affect our economic growth. You see, so for the sake of economics, for the sake of political clout, political power in the world, we are sacrificing the sky above our heads and the earth beneath our feet and the trees, plants, and animals that are growing around us. We are threatening our water sources, which is the single greatest force that sustains life upon this earth. Understand? So, Isaac Asimov goes on to say that we have to take care of these problems, we have to handle them and take corrective action. What sort of corrective action? Just one nation cannot make a difference. There has to be a global consensus, a global agreement, a global vision and cooperation among all nations. See, you have, things like the Paris Accord, which a lot of countries have signed, about bringing down the emissions and bringing down greenhouse gases emissions and so on. But, that is a purely voluntary thing. America just stepped out of it, last year. So that cannot be done. Understand? There has to be a body that can make countries responsible and accountable. Understand? When they punish a country, when they fine a country, that must have serious consequences. But you look at any kind of global body, the sad thing is, a global body is funded or financed by the countries themselves. Understand? So they will never give those bodies the power to punish them, because this body is being funded by them. Understand? This is like you appoint a watchman in your house, for your house. Okay. But that watchman cannot prevent you from stealing from your own house, because you're the person paying your watchman. And you understand the conundrum, right? That is it. So, he admits that there has been some progress towards environment conservation, and birth rates are dropping in some countries, but a lot more needs to be done. He feels that, there has to be a greater and more concerted vision, because if very, very effective and, swift action is not taken, then human beings can become extinct. And for that, you can always wonder, how is it there is still a lot of food? We can see food traveling left and right in, trucks and everything. Then, no, that is not the case. The sad part is that bees, honeybees and so on, which pollinate the world, are in danger of dying out because of interference from radio waves, our mobile towers and so on. That is causing a great deal of changes, at least as far as bees are concerned. Now imagine all the flowers are all there and there is nothing that can pollinate these. Then what will happen? Will there be crop production? No. If there is no crop production, what are you going to eat? You can live on chips and cold drinks. But even those things have to come from somewhere. Potatoes have to come from a plant. If the plant is not pollinated, one batch of potatoes you will eat. What about the next batch and the next batch? Then there will be a great deal of food shortage, there will be a famine. Do you know that it is said that the next world war, World War III, will be fought in the name of water? Understand? Sometimes we just leave the tap open and we do this mass cleaning, washing, and you just let a wonderful amount of water flow through. It is glorious. But there are places where people have to walk 5 or 10 kilometers for a pot of water. Understand? Where people are facing severe water shortage, or places where the water is so contaminated that it can lead to very, very terminal illnesses. Understand? And all of this is directly connected to the environment, and to the population, I'm sorry, to the growth of population. Okay. Now, in this conclusion, in his 1971 essay, The Good Earth is Dying, Isaac Asimov points out that this fast-moving technological advancements, and its harmful impact on society and the environment has become a very, very serious issue. So, fast-moving technological advancements have led to a very harmful impact on society and on environment, and this is a very, very serious issue. Okay. And but the thing is that the world is not willing to do anything much because we are greedy as far as material comforts are concerned. Once upon a time, it was believed that only the very rich can afford a television. Only the extremely, extremely rich can afford an air conditioner. Okay. But then what did we do? We started making air coolers for the lower middle class. Then air conditioners became very, very affordable. Okay. And people began thinking, oh, maybe we won't eat for a month, but we will buy an AC. We can afford, LED and LCD TVs. Okay. And radios and a lot of other things like that, mobile phones. Okay. And, all of these things have a very, very significant impact upon the environment. Now, see, we have, that means, adopted a biocentric approach. Okay, sorry, a human-centric approach, anthropocentric approach, as opposed to a biocentric approach. Okay, so this is what we have done. Okay, we should have taken a biocentric approach, but instead what we did was that we took in an anthropocentric or a human-centric approach to the environment. And we should understand or admit that overpopulation and careless exploitation of the earth is causing mass extinction of plant and animal species. We all know that. Okay, there are at least 20 species of plants or animals dying out every day, if not more. And as I told you earlier, there will be no life on the planet if the plants die out. If the plants and all the animals die out, what will we do? Okay, we will also gradually die out. The world will become a dead place. So what needs to be done is that human beings have to rise up and accept responsibility for their actions. Okay, remember what Greta Thunberg said at that historic summit. She said, shame on you. How dare you, in the name of economic progress, take away my future, take away my earth, take away everything around me. Understand? So that's exactly the question that you should be asking yourself and, the adults around you. Okay, because the earth belongs to you. This is your future. So, what is needed is a global body with actual powers of governance. Okay, they have to oversee the health of the earth and the environment. And the human race must self-regulate. We have to say, we cannot do this. We cannot, produce unimaginable amounts of carbon. Okay, we cannot pollute our water. We cannot pollute our skies. In fact, now human beings have started polluting outer space also. Very simply, what they do is that, the huge number of satellites that are being sent up into space. It's unbelievable. Every country wants its own satellite. Of course, this has improved, telecommunications. It has improved mobile communication. It has improved our internet networks. It has made connectivity way more easy, so on and so forth. Yes, but outer space is also getting cluttered. Now think of the impact that, this can cause. Think of the kind of damage that this can do. Okay, so human beings must self-regulate and impose rules on itself. This is the only way that human beings can continue to exist on earth. Otherwise, they will, be led to a great die-off, as Isaac Asimov has said, DIE hyphen OFF, die-off. Okay, that's what he called extinction. Okay, so this is the basic essential idea of the essay, The Good Earth is Dying. I think the title itself is very significant because it is a warning as well as it is a lament. It is a warning as well as a lament when he says the good earth is dying. Okay, so yeah, and always keep this image in mind. Yeah, that is it. Now, do you have any questions? Anybody? No? Are you all there? Have I been?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So is this lesson clear? I mean, is this segment clear? Do you have any doubts?
No, ma'am.